Welcome to Breaking Banks, the #1 global fintech radio show and podcast. I'm Brett King.
And I'm Jason Henrichs. Every week since 2013, we explore the personalities, startups, innovators, and industry players driving disruption in financial services.
From incumbents to unicorns, and from cutting-edge technology to the people using it to help create a more innovative, inclusive, and healthy financial future. I'm JP Nichols, and this is Breaking Banks.
Trust underpins all of financial services. We have regulation and audits to validate that trust is in fact warranted, and we have guarantees like the FDIC insurance that back up our trust. Nowhere is the importance of trust felt more acutely than in community banking. This week on Breaking Banks, Carie Kelly, SVP of Digital at Claremont Savings Bank, and Steve Lewis, CEO of Thomaston Savings Bank, and I talk about trust as the core asset of banking. We're later joined by Emily Cisek, CEO of the Paige, that recently partnered with both Claremont and Thomaston to support generational transitions. Disclosure, Alloy Labs is an investor in the Paige, but that's not why she's on the show. We found Emily through a proactive search for tools that can help banks be the trusted advisor in generational transitions. She fit the bill perfectly, and that's the partnerships with our banks that we wanted to bring to light. I'm your host, Jason Henrichs, and this is Breaking Banks. Today, we're talking about something that might surprise you. It's not stablecoins or agentic AI. It's about something much more fundamental, trust, and how the $124 trillion wealth transfer that's happening right now in the United States is either going to make or break community banks. They either become an icon of what the future of trust means, or they get replaced. Now, let's start with the elephant in the room. Community banks are getting squeezed from every direction, right? In a time where we've seen over, basically since, the early 2000s, just a boom time within community banking, both because of cost of funds being exceedingly low, booming economies, making defaults low, some of the phenomenons around ZIRP and the bailouts related to PPP, we've seen relatively low failures. But all of that has begun to unwind. And Steve, I'd love to start with you. How are you feeling the pressure on your business model? Where's it hitting the hardest or creating the most uncertainty?
I think, hitting across different levels. Obviously, we could start with just the shape of the yield curve. We spent the last 12 years with, a very difficult yield curve that was very difficult for banks with 0% interest rates, which really crushed on our margin. During the same time, the advent of fintechs, a significant advancement in technology, the digital expectation. So our margins getting squeezed. Simultaneously, our spend on technology is, blowing through the roof. So those two basic things. And then the competition for customers is getting much, much more fierce. From those fintech niche players that are nibbling in from both ends with very specific areas, whether they're going after personal loans, whether they're going after our mortgage business, or after our payments and interchange business. So I think the complexity and the challenges we face, over the past decade has escalated significantly and very quickly. I don't think that pace of change and pace of challenge is going to go away. With the advent of AI and, the Genius Act, stablecoins, crypto, all these different things coming down on us, this is not going to, the pressure is not going to change on this community bank space.
Well, and if anything, what I hear you describing is it's increasing, that actually the past 10 years was the anomaly, and now it's kind of returned to normal, plus additional pressures, not we're going back to what it looked like. Carie, do you agree with that? Are you feeling similar pressures?
I do. I feel like with the increase in fintech, increase in new technology, consumers have basically spoken to a point now where they're demanding a different experience from their banks. So from the banking standpoint, we can't continue to do things the way that we've been doing them for as long as we have. because there are all these new expectations that are being put on banks to provide deeper services, more advisement, more of the things that they can't get from technology is being put back on the community bank. And if we continue to operate in the way that we have been up until this point, we won't survive. So really having that added pressure of needing to have the technology to support us, but then also have the right people to know how to use and understand the technology to deliver better customer experience has really been what's been putting pressure on us. We can't be lean. We can't rely just on technology to service our customers. We also need to have people, which is definitely putting the crunch on our numbers.
And is this a consumer-only problem for you, Carie, or does this cross over into the commercial realm as well?
It's definitely on the commercial side too. A lot of people, like I said, have learned how to kind of self-serve their banking needs. And it's not until they get to a point where they can no longer self-serve and they need somebody to step in and provide that additional experience and to provide those advisory tools that they then call us. So the advanced level of knowledge and the type of training that our teams need to be able to support more advanced issues in banking for consumers and for businesses so that they can kind of step out of that world and focus on their own businesses or their own day-to-day needs.
When I talk to fintechs about their unique competitive advantage, without fail, they bring up either user experience or technology. Community banks, conversely, when you ask the CEO, they say, oh, it's really about relationships. When you press on that, most talk about, we know the customer, or our kids are in the same school or T-ball, or we're present in the community. Yet only 1 in 5 banking customers report feeling an emotional connection to their bank. And I think one of the greatest competitive advantages community banks have, even if they don't feel that emotional connection all the time, is community bank customers trust their bank. But it's, us as the banks, we don't often put enough tangible activities beyond that. Steve, I know this is a huge strategic initiative for you around leveraging trust. How are you putting that into practice?
And yes, we definitely have that underlying a lot of the themes through our strategic plan this year. It really comes down to the people. And you have to, as Carie had mentioned, really raise the skills and capabilities and confidence of your staff. So when they sit with their clients, they can have an educated discussion to listen to what the needs of those customers are and then provide them solutions that address the specific needs for those customers both today and tomorrow. And it has to be done both on the retail side and on the commercial side. So you have different skill sets that have to be built in there. And in the branch side, the clients are typically going to be retail, and you really need to train on that side. But then in the commercial world, you really have to go into the treasury management services. And then coupled with that, underlying that is the amount of fraud that's taking place right now. There also has to be a level of skills to help customers not fall victim to fraud. That's like a little bit of an underlying thing because that's where the trust is coming back to us. But that trust is the people committing that fraud are so good, they are breaking down that trust with us. And we have to work really hard to regain it. And unfortunately, sometimes we don't regain that trust until a customer has lost a lot. So that, that's something that I'm fearful of right now is, and I assume, Carie, you're seeing this, across the board. We're hearing the amount of fraud that's taking place is exponentially growing. And it's because they're really going after trust. They're building trust on the phone through social media and taking the trust away from us. And then for us to say that doesn't make sense is something that's scary. But, going back to the big picture, it's educating your staff, providing the resources to your staff, and doing those things so they can have that informed conversation with their client to provide the right solutions at the right time.
Carie, I know a big part of your job is this concept of creating customer centricity. How is that played out across the bank when you're moving really from a transactional, come into the branch, get a transaction done, or transactional on a digital, like sending a wire, loading an ACH within my treasury management. Us as banks think of that like, well, that's natural. It's not what our customers think of. How are you promoting customer centricity in that mindset amongst Claremont?
Thankfully, the beautiful thing about Claremont is it is a strong community bank in that sense of I walked in almost having to say like, well, what about the transactional side of things? This bank is so ingrained in the community. Sometimes you're like, well, yeah, like I know you want to spend 3 hours with a customer, but like, it's almost the opposite effect, which is it's been yeah, right. It's been a really enlightening experience, and it's kind of changed my perspective on what it means to be a community bank because of how engrossed people are and how much that second nature is. What I've been trying to do is really translate that into the digital world. So how do we provide that same level of customer service digitally to customers so that they still feel as valued as if they were to walk into our branch and be welcomed by our teams? So that's really been what I've been challenged with, is thinking about customer service and what that means for a user. Does that mean that they don't want to talk to somebody? Maybe being a trusted advisor or really supporting a customer is based on the fact that I don't ever want to talk to you. Like that. So for some people, that's their truth, right? They don't want to have to talk to somebody. For them, customer services, it's all presented to me without having that touch point. So it's kind of really understanding the difference between what it means to service a customer beyond just having that face-to-face interaction. And that's been kind of the mission here.
It's funny. I tell this to my financial advisor all the time. I get pulled in to talk to his organization's digital strategy group. And I don't want to talk to you unless I need to talk to you, which is 99% of the time. I do not enjoy you calling me to talk about things if I can look it up on my own or get an alert, right? Like I only want to talk to you when I have a need that only you as the human can solve. And that actually is a great segue. In full disclosure here, Alloy's Alchemist Fund is an investor in Paige, with Emily joining us. But we went after this for a very specific reason. I think the backstory is pretty interesting for people. And Steve, I think some of your team was part of this. When we did a deep dive on generational transitions, one of the problem statements that came up, and I was shocked when it came up, and I was shocked the number of times it was repeated, was issues around the children dealing with mom and dad and planning for the future and the transitions in terms of managing accounts. Where are the accounts? And the number of times it fell to whoever was still local, with a lot of effort coming largely in the form of phone calls into the branch from adult children who live away. And we had started searching for solutions, proactively saying, who is helping solve the problem of generational transitions? And we found Emily. And Emily, I'd love to start with you. How did you stumble on the problem, and what is it Paige sets out to do? Because it's very different than, it's easy to say, oh, this planning is really about, you need an estate plan, you need a will, or, if you're lucky, you have enough money, you have a trust. But that is, again, a transaction and not at all what Paige set out to solve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I personally went through a period back in 2018 when I lost 3 family members in I guess it was a 6-week period. And because I saw the variances of what I would call the scavenger hunt and the finding of the assets, the elements, the different aspects, one grandmother had everything super tight and organized so we could celebrate her life and process that loss. The other grandmother, not so much. So there was family frustrations. And then I had a 13-month-old, my cousin's 13-month-old passed away. And while a child doesn't have assets, there are these challenges with families. One, talking about it. It's really difficult to talk about. 2, there's not a straightforward framework that guides you through, hey, your life is full of all these pieces. Yes, transactional, some of it, healthcare, some of it, passwords are some of it, all of these pieces. But if you don't have a straightforward framework to actually put that somewhere, get guided through that, and then connect that to the people you want to at the time they need it, having that is just impossible. It's overwhelming. And so we could create a way that we leverage trust and build trust, leveraging technology, not replacing relationships, but leveraging those things so that we can leverage the technology to connect those generations. So the aging parent who's a customer who has children elsewhere, if you can do that years before there's a transition and build that trust through a technology that is supported by humans ultimately, then that is what I wanted to do. And if I could make that process, just 20% better, was the original vision. And then finding community banks. I grew up in a very small town. Actually, one of the banks used to be part of Alloy Labs, or is still, where I went and deposited my check from Subway. And because of that mentality and where I grew up, I could understand, community banks are the perfect place to leverage the relationships they already have, which they do, and the trust they already have, but build on that using technology to connect with that next generation, to ultimately, that trust and those relationships are what are going to make community banks win. If you understand that and do that within families by leveraging that home relationship or that family relationship you already have, and having them kind of push the relationship with the bank and build these emotional connections, I just geek out on this stuff, obviously. So, but that's what it's all about, is building those connections, not just transactional, but relational too, and emotional, using this technology to tie it back to what, the community banks needs in these communities.
Carie, I'm curious for both you and Steve in terms of how you came to the partnership with Paige. Did you see the need in your customers and went in search of a solution? Or did Emily open your eyes and you started looking and realized the problem was there? Where in the chicken and egg did this come together?
For us, I had met Emily several years ago, and loved her, loved the concept of Paige, and really wanted to find a way to deliver that to people that need it. Myself being one of them, I wanted to be one of the people that was able to sign up to the platform and utilize the services. So when I came to Claremont Savings Bank, my day one, I was sitting in a strategic meeting where we were being presented with information on our client base. And the folks that were doing the analysis said that the average age of our highest depositors at the bank was 77 years old. And to that, I was like, whew, that is a challenge, right? So I'm coming in from the digital side saying, how are we going to provide digital services to an aging population, not realizing the true age of the population. So that I immediately, day one, thought of Paige and said, there has to be a way that we can provide additional services to these folks. Knowing and also having heard stories of people within the community bringing just, stacks of file folders and walking into our branch and putting it on the desk of their banker and saying, can you help me find the documents that I need in this scenario? So kind of hearing these scenarios, knowing that we needed to offer some sort of service also for our first responders, our policemen, our firefighters, those high risk individuals. And it all just made perfect sense. So from that first day, I was like, we got to get this in the door, because just knowing that I was at a bank where the essential consumer really provided that. And then also on the business side, our head of business banking is ingrained in the community. She knows every customer here at the bank. She knows every business customer. And just knowing the personal stories that she has also shared and being able to provide and looking at Paige and being able to provide different services for the business arm as well, it was just a great synergy for our
You
teams.
hit two of my favorite misconceptions when we think about this generational transition. Is one, it's not just an old people thing, right? Like, this came up when we were doing our due diligence again and again. One of the most active groups were new parents, right? That realization of like, I got to get my ducks in a row, right? Like, I need medical power of attorney. I'm going to need, this the first time I leave my children. This came up with Sammer on our team. First time I'm leaving my children, right? Like, oh my God, I need my children because I'm not going to be present. That caretaker needs it. Oh, by the way, we like at least need the base of a will. So I like that first responder and high risk, but especially on the commercial side, right? The business transition is so messy. And Steve, not just talking about Paige here, you guys at Thomaston are thinking so much about trusted advisor and where that fits. What's the spectrum of things? Don't give away your secret sauce, but what sorts of things are you thinking about when you're the trusted advisor? How does that manifest itself?
Well, I think, I mean, you hit upon a few of the things, and I will lead a little bit with Paige. We've had the same situation Carie says of widowers and different folks that lost a family member walking in with the ghost look of, what do I do now, right? So we've always been providing that trusted service at the end, right? So
Yep.
What can we do to be on the front side of this so when we get to the end, we're not scrambling? We prepared you for that next step and give you a plan and give you some action steps you can take now, so if that unexpected event occurs, you're not coming in here with the 9,000 folders totally distraught and destroyed, emotionally a wreck, and trying to fix your financial situation. So I look at it here's one thing we can do to build on that trust, is say, hey, let's take a few things now just in case. And, yes, we can refer them over to an attorney, but, reality, a lot of these folks, the attorney is not the right solution for them. Their assets aren't enough. They don't trust attorneys. They don't have, a lot of different reasons. So I think this is Paige's product is a great first step for someone to start that plan. And if they are a business and need something more advanced, they're going to have to get eventually to an attorney. But in the interim, to start that process, start thinking about the unexpected, for us, I see that as like a great step to build trust with our clients.
Well, one of the things I love what you laid out, Steve, because I think this is another one of the great misconceptions. And I know our production team was laughing when I said I wanted to talk about the great wealth transfer, because I always rail against people talking about the great wealth transfer, right? On stage and online. My aversion, I think, is everyone talks about it like it's this discrete event where it's like, there's an older population that has wealth, and boom, the next generation is going to have the wealth. But it's not a tsunami, it's a trickle. And I think one of the things that you did a great job hitting on there, Steve, is this is a unexpected, but you don't know when in a 20-year journey, 30-year journey, that event could be occurring, but you need to be prepared for it. And there's that longevity to the relationship. And I'm curious, because this goes back to the anti-transaction, and Carie, I'm guessing you have some opinions on this too, is how do we think about like this longitudinal relationship in how we build it, both in supporting the parent or the business owner and the next generation? And, again, we can talk about Paige, but what are the other ways you're supporting it as well?
So definitely looking at that, I believe the term would be the sandwich generation, right? Those that have the young ones at home and then the potentially even their own parents at home, or at least being their caregivers. But for us, we try to look at the full human. So there's the concept of offering a product that's a checking account, right? Like, or in the next generation of the spend account, right? The spend and save account versus a checking and savings account. But we're not looking at it as providing a checking account or savings account to our customers. We're looking at it as, what does that customer need in order to bank with us for life? So we're not looking at one aspect of their identity and saying, here's one product that we're going to try to sell to everyone because it's the best in class and it's got the best user experience. It's what types of products and services are we going to put in front of our customers that will allow them to continue to have us as their core banking relationship, but will also make it easier for them to use some of the ancillary services that they love. So we're not trying to necessarily change behaviors from people using financial apps or other systems that they love and they want to keep. We as a bank are just looking for ways that we can help sustain that and make it easier for them to do those things. So whether it's actually making financial transactions or doing things in the periphery of finances, like a Paige or like wealth planning or investments or things like that, we're looking at it from that kind of holistic standpoint of how can we be a full service bank in the sense that we offer several different types of products and services, but full service in the sense that we are supporting all the different financial aspects of what makes a person want to interact with their bank.
Yeah. And I think with and this isn't just with Paige, but having that multi-front door approach is what I kind of call it with our product, but having a way where, if you're feeling comfortable with doing, you're a small business owner and you're thinking about your business and what that will look like in 5 years, 10 years, or if your son or daughter is going to take over those businesses. If that's where you want to start and you are supported in that, and then there's steps to, hey, once you get to this point, Claremont or Thomaston has this great next step that kind of bridges that gap and ties it back, with that level of trust when they kind of not outgrow, but they've been on this path. And, eventually there is going to be a transition point for their business. And there will be that supported guide who already understands where they are because of the technology, but it still connects with the people. Then you have one of the most interesting things we've seen is we've partnered with a university as well. And what is happening is the sandwich generation moms are actually signing up their kids who are 18 and 19 for the product because they're realizing, hey, we're not going to have control over our kids if something happens, if there's a financial event. And that was something we never expected. So our financial institutions that have close relationships with universities are also exploring, hey, how do we build on the existing customers' trust to maybe in the sandwich generation, but also connecting with that next generation who's coming up, where this is just a natural thing where we're talking about it, we're going through the motions depending on where they are in their journey and getting, a step ahead of the 20 steps they have down the road, but starting bit by bit and not making it so overwhelming that it's like, you have to do all these things. Start here. Start with the transactional or start with the emotional and capture a memory. It's really up to you. And we guide them through that step by step to meet them where they are, which is very much like Carie said, looking at that whole person, meeting them where they are, whether they want to call in or not, or handle these things in certain ways. We enable them to do that in the way they want, but feel supported and have this trusted relationship throughout.
Hi, this is Rob Cisek from the Futurist Podcast, which is part of the Provoke Media Network. I'm excited to tell you about some news. The Futurist is expanding into the real world. We're doing a live event in Dubai. Now, folks who listen to the Futurist Podcast, you're going to be familiar with the fact that my co-host Brett King has been working very hard in Dubai and other parts of the Middle East for a long time. And for more than a year, he's been putting together this event. And now, with the help and support of MasterCard and Emirates MBD and many other partners, we are putting together the world's largest futurist meeting in Dubai. It will take place at the fabulous Jumeirah Beach Hotel in Dubai, and it'll be on the September 22nd and 23rd this year. So just a few weeks from now. The speakers are going to include some of the world's leading futurists and forecasters and future thinkers. People like Brian Cox and astronaut Scott Kelly. Of course, Brett and I will be there to conduct interviews and introduce some of the other folks. We've got speakers from around the world. And if you're interested in meeting futurists in person and participating in an event that attracts the future-minded, please join us on the 22nd and 23rd of September. You can learn more about it at futuristevent.com. That's futurist singular event.com. It's all one word, futuristevent.com. And that'll tell you all about the event. I sure hope to see you there in Dubai on the 22nd and 23rd of September. Thanks.
Steve and Carie, I'm curious, how much is that guidance helpful? Because Carie, thinking back to we can't take the human out of it, right? Like this is really the cyborg of we need to melt the human and the digital elements of it. How much of Claremont are you focused on? You leverage, is it the digital first on the tools, and they can ask the human? Is the human helping them set up? How do you bring those things together?
It's a work in progress, right? But I would say that right now it's all very human first. And I say that because a lot of the reasons that we find people either call in or that they come to our bank is less transactional in nature. It's more they have a problem or they need kind of guidance or what type of product to open, or they need cash management services that they really would rather just have that conversation with. So a lot of it has been really human first with a digital augment. We are kind of shifting some of that into digital first with a human augment looking at shifting our call center into more of an engagement center where there's some of the outbound communication that happens. Though what we found is oftentimes when you call somebody from your bank, it's an immediate place of fear, not necessarily helpfulness. So I think they're delighted when it's actually coming from a place of helpfulness. But we are trying to make that, I wouldn't call it so much of a shift, but being able to be both based on what our customers want. The other thing that we're looking at is like, how can we take the information that we already know about our customers and package it back to them to kind of help them out? Not from just a data modeling standpoint or from a way to service them ads or things like that, but more of like, if you take our business accounts, for example, during the time of account opening, we ask for all of their business information, all the sorts of things that you would need to open up a business account. And so we have that information. Why can't we then store it and resurface it back to them as a benefit to say like, hey, we've digitized everything for you. We need it for our records, but we can also expose it to you to keep for your own records. So those are some of the things that we're looking at, like where are ways that we can insert additional, an additional enhanced customer experience for things that we're already doing anyway that would provide a benefit back.
I would love if our bank could keep that copy of our articles of incorporation and our certificate of insurance, rather than me having to go digging around or download from the state of Delaware every time I need that, right? Which the problem is it's not frequent enough. So every 3 years, I'm like, I'm being asked for this.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm curious, when you think of trusted advisor and how you're bringing the human and the digital elements together, how is Thomaston thinking about it?
I think, I'll kind of mimic a little bit with Carie. It's a work in progress. It's really, I think, led at this point with our staff, with the customer typically coming into the branch with that question. So we're not, we're not really driving it. I think it's the customer coming in and looking for assistance. And then we have to probably help them through the process because sometimes they need help, but they're not sure what help they exactly need and what steps have to be done. And that's where we can, lead them through it. But I would like to eventually build out our digital user interface where it's more of a event activity driven, where it will pick up things within the account that maybe indicate they need some assistance. For example, if a large unusual deposit drops into their account, maybe we could send a message to them. We have an investment advisor. We saw some unusual activity. Maybe there's an opportunity now for you to invest some of those funds in, Joe, our investment advisor, could help you, or some other activity like that where we're triggering it based upon not an age, not a demographic, not something like that. It's like a specific event unique to that customer. And I think as AI builds out, those digital user experiences will get smarter. I mean, and that's what the fintechs are doing a lot of. And that's where we can get better of identifying where the customer may have some needs based upon activity that's happening within their account. And they may not even know it yet, right? So we're a little bit ahead of the game. I think that would separate us, where we can call them on the phone, and say, hey, we see this happening. We'd like to talk to you, see if we can help you out. And so little, down the road, that's where I'd love to see us get those capabilities. I think it's going to take a little time, but I think it's totally doable with some of the technology today.
So, Steve, I love how you hit on the engagement. You can get ahead of these things. How are you measuring success? Like, what have you put as the markers to say, with Paige, here's what we think the outcome is, both for our customers and for us?
Well, we have a variety of KPIs that we put in there, and obviously customer retention is really important. Customer engagement, there's a lot of different ways. Whether you're, I know that these terms primacy are different things, but really the simplest way I put this is, when a customer has a financial problem, I want us to be the first call. Simplest way to explain it. How you measure that, I don't know if there's really a way to measure that, but best way we look at it is, do we have their primary spending, payment, checking, whatever you want to call it. Do we have that primary account, and how long do we retain it? And then build off that. I mean, that's kind of the simplest way, but what I'm sure we're all once you start adding different tools, you can start seeing the full wallet of a customer, and you'll realize they have their mortgage somewhere else, their credit card somewhere else, their consumer loans somewhere else. So really how strong really is that relationship? Yeah. So trying to wind those things back to you if possible, and having those services, but unless you can see that, you don't know that. And getting there is it's very difficult to get to that point, to have that information to see it.
I took some heat for saying this last time because people didn't like how I described it. We don't realize that our customers are in fact polyamorous. We think we are the only one, only to find out they've got accounts and money tucked away, and they've got a loan here, and they're using buy now, pay later, and all these other little things. And we're one of many.
Yep. And, we've been trying to get customers onto some of our, onto our digital solutions using like MX, so we can kind of see their full picture. And then from that, one thing we have done is we can see where they maybe have credit cards that are really high interest rate. And we can offer them a consumer loan product that would allow them to pay that debt off and improve their cash flow simultaneously.
Yep.
Like, you take your interest rate from 25 down to 12, put it in a 5-year, fixed rate consumer loan with a fixed payment, they can pay off that credit card debt. And their monthly payment is actually less. And we've had customers actually walk out crying because we did it all within an hour. Wow. And they were blown away and walked out realizing that they're paying off a credit card and they have more monthly cash flow. So to be able to do more and more things like that, is where we ultimately want to get to. But seeing that customer's full financial picture is so important. And unless you can do that, it's very, very difficult to provide all the solutions on using a digital platform.
Carie, how are you guys defining success in the relationship?
We have our KPIs. Where we're really looking, though, is at this stage, we're looking at our employee adoption of it. Because what we've found with our community is that if our employees aren't actively using it for themselves, it's unlikely that the community members who are so similar to the employees here, because they are living and breathing in our community. If they aren't using it, then our community members won't be interested in it. So that's been our first KPI that we've been really focusing on. And with very little on that, I think we've had about a third of our employee base sign up for it.
Yep.
Which is
30%
wonderful.
almost. Yep. 30%. And we were up to 22, I think, in 4 days. So that was a good one.
But it just speaks to if they can rally around it and they can get excited about it, they are going to share that with the folks that they know most need it. Because some of these relationships are 10, 20, 30 years old at this point for banker to customer. So that was a really important aspect of it for us. And then it's also the concept of it's an intangible. It's not really a KPI that you can quantify, but there's the intangible aspect of being able to provide some sort of peace and comfort for people. Finances, especially in certain areas that, not necessarily the wealthiest area of the country. When you're providing financial services, sometimes it can be a point of contention for some people or a point of angst. Where if we can kind of flip that around and say, you can come to us for more of a comfort, we are like a soft place for you to fall. We're not going to be judging you. We're not going to be critical of your aspects. You can tell us all these, you can be honest with us and we'll provide those services back to you. This gives us another one of those tools where if people come in and they talk about their days, they talk about what's keeping them up at night just kind of naturally, we now have a tool that we can say, hey, I actually can help you with that, which is huge because most of the time as a banker, you listen to them and you smile and you take their check and you process it and you give it back. But when you can actually say, I have something that can help you, and it's again, financial, like kind of tangent, it's not direct banking product. It's really a nice thing to be able to say that to somebody and to share your own experience. So that's really what our goal is with this relationship or partnership.
Emily, I'm curious because this one always surprises me. Once you're in it with some of these banks and other FIs, what have been the unexpected learnings and sources of return that you just couldn't have predicted going in?
Yeah. One of the biggest ones was, I think, Carie hit it on the head with the employees. Being able to start there, but what that actually had was a trickle effect on small businesses in the community. Because a lot of the small businesses in your community have employees who may not get the opportunity to have differentiated offerings. So there was, with one of the FIs, where a small business came in and said, hey, I want to actually provide Paige to my own employees. How do I do that? And so the bank had an opportunity. Yes, they could charge that person, or they could say, hey, if you move your investments, if you move your, banking with us, then we'll provide that as something for your customers and for your employees. So that was an unexpected way I never anticipated. For that to happen. And what ultimately with the bank that happened with, they ended up moving some of their investments and their 401ks to that bank, which is not, a direct KPI that I would put on our roadmap because of, all the work they do in the bank day in and day out. But it was something to say, hey, like this is another step in that toolkit for you to kind of acquire and gain that type of customer that you never expected. So that's one. I think the other piece is, having millennial moms and then like 50 plus women who are using the platform on it, logging in like 2.5 times a month and logging in for non-financial, non-transactional things, but then getting guided back into the relationship with the bank that they may not have had prior to that. Or they may not have had, because they're getting invited in from their parents or their spouses who manages the finances, being able to get connected in that way. We had one recently that was like, hey, can my wife I have an American State Bank account, and they chatted with us and said, can my wife use this too? She doesn't have an account. And I said, absolutely. I mean, with AM State's blessing, absolutely she can sign up for this, because you know that that spouse is likely to be their executor, or it's their oldest daughter who's going to be that executor. And so if you are there in the moments now, for them to have that relationship is, you know, I never expected it to come from the emotional side of the products, but like we even have people using it as a baby book. And then when their kids turn 18 and they send all those photos and emails to their kid, they're going to be like, I have this because of Claremont, because of Thomaston. I want to bank with them and keep that relationship with them.
As we come to a close, Steve and Carie, would love for you, what do you view as the fundamentals on how you build trust with those advisors, right? Because it can feel amorphous in that becoming the trusted advisor. How do you earn trust?
It has to be earned. First off, it's not one specific thing you do. It's something you build over time. And I think it's honesty. You know, you have to be honest with your customers. You have to be fair with your customers. You have to show them respect. And, you know, very importantly, you have to listen. Don't be talking all the time and forcing them to take things that don't make sense for them. So I think if you can do those things over time, you will build the trust and build that relationship. Start small and just continues to get bigger, and then that can last a lifetime. There's no one magic bullet for that. It's just it's a steps that you build over time.
I would echo all of that, and also add showing up all the time and being there, being present, being available is also one of the things that's been helpful. There's typically a lot of turnover in the branch world. Oftentimes the retail team is kind of like a feeder for some other areas of the bank as people move up in their careers. And giving our internal team some growth plans within the branches, I think has been really helpful to create that longevity and create those customer relationships, like I said, that have lasted decades at this point. So I think kind of always being present and there and available to support people certainly helps with the trust. And like Steve talked about at the beginning of this, the fraudsters are constantly trying to erode that trust, and we're to the point where people that have had long-term customers here have gotten into heated debates. No, I shouldn't say it quite like that. But conversations with our customers saying like, no, you're being scammed. This is a fraudster, and they just don't see it. So even years of trust can get eroded pretty easily by these fraudsters that are master manipulators. So that's been a really important aspect of what we're trying to do, is understand not just our customers that are physically present, but understand them digitally and kind of get them familiar with who we are, and having that same kind of consistent tone, consistent branding and messaging out there is one of the things that we're focused on to try to build that level of, at least you guys know who we are, who we say we are.
I would just echo too, and both of them have hit on this, is being there in those moments of those steps where you're building that trust over years and years, supporting them in whichever place in their life that they are, and helping them kind of facilitate that and be there for them. So it's being present and listening, but then understanding, hey, oh, you have an aunt that's aging and here's this thing that's happening. Or, hey, you just bought a house. Or, hey, you just started a business. Here's these other tools that can help kind of build on that relationship and help you, customer, where you are in your life, get to that next step wherever you're going.
Fantastic. Well, Emily, I think that was a great way to wrap up the end. Thank you to the three of you to coming on, talking about trust, the way your partnership's rolling out. Emily, if anyone wants to learn more about Paige, where can they find that?
Yes, they can go to go-paige.com.
And that is Paige with an I. Paige. All right. Thank you all for joining us.
That's it for another week of the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. This episode was produced by our US-based production team, including producer Elizabeth Severance, audio engineer Kevin Hersham, If you like this episode, don't forget to tweet it out or post it on your favorite social media, or leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Facebook, or wherever it is that you listen to our show. Those actions help other people find our podcast, and in return, that helps us build an audience that can be supported by sponsorship so we can continue to provide you with our award-winning content every week. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you on Breaking Banks next week.